And we are live. So for my segment today on the show, what we're going to be talking about is what the hell is actually going on in Ukraine. And we're also going to address the concept that I've been told many times today, Jack, you were wrong. Was I wrong? Yes and no. Okay. And I'm going to start off with that because we'll get through that. Then we can talk about what's actually going on. What I've been saying is that the Biden administration has been playing for a Cuban Missile Crisis moment. That they didn't think Ukraine would be invaded by Russia. And I said the same thing. I didn't think that Putin would invade Ukraine. You say, no, he did now. See, you're wrong. Well, we'll get there. But that was what Biden was planning on, that he would throw all this tough talk. And then when it didn't happen, he would claim he backed down Putin. I think that was the game he played. But as typical, the potato in chief is not good at any of the game that he plays. He ran his mouth too much and he revealed too much. And Putin said, hey, I got an opportunity here. All right, so I think that's kind of how that went down. I think the less we would do there, and Ron Paul's segment earlier on the show, for those that are just watching the live feed, he talked about non-intervention as well. And Dan McAdams over there said, being non-intervention is not pro-Putin or pro-Russia. It's actually pro-American. And I'm going to need people to check your emotions in a lot of what I'm going to say today. There's going to be some things that I'm going to say today that that will sound pro-Putin maybe because saying someone did something right or someone has an intention that's not exactly always wrong tends to be seen as a wholesale endorsement because people are very emotionally led in our world today. If you're like me and you're in my age bracket, I'm 50 years old. I grew up at a time where we still had nuclear drills, and the Russians were the bad guys. And every little boy went outside and played Red Dawn after we watched the movie and wanted to be like Patrick Swayze or what have you. And it's very hard to disconnect yourself from the concept that the Russians are the bad guys, the Russians are the enemies. And if you followed me for any length of time, you should know that I don't divide us into enemies that way. I divide us into enemies as there's people that are pro-liberty, and there's people that are pro-tyranny, and they just want their particular flavor of tyranny. So when you say Vladimir Putin's a thug, it's not that I disagree. It's that I disagree that Joe Biden's not a thug, that Donald Trump wasn't a thug, that Justin Trudeau's not a thug, that freaking what's-his-name running the UK right now is not a thug. That I completely agree with the fact that every politician is a thug, willing to use force to get what they want and to stay in power. So if I say anything today that you think, oh, and here, like this right here, this is what I want to shut down. Planned propagation. Taiwan next. Probability of World War III if that occurs. Stop it. Especially young people. Those of you who didn't ever go out into a hallway or climb under your desk and put your head between your legs and kiss your ass goodbye during a drill because we might get bombed by the Russians. Stop the fucking hysteria. Relax. Relax. Because that's exactly what the people in power don't want you to do right now, is to realize how insignificant this really is in your life. Not in the lives of Ukraine, not in the lives of Russians, especially not in the people that are in eastern Ukraine. Not insignificant for them. Insignificant for you. And let's start off with that. So what you're going to hear is all these bleeding heart cases now of why we need to get involved and how evil Putin is and how desperate these people are for our help. There's a little less than, I think, 200 countries in the world total. At any given time, about a quarter of them, about 50 of them, are fucking with about 50 other countries. And there's always one side that's worse than the other side. Okay? Always one side that's worse than the other side. And we'll get to Taiwan here, but not in the way you think in just a minute. So are we supposed to get involved with all of them? Are we supposed to try to settle the scores in Central Africa and pick the right side to get involved? Are we supposed to continue getting involved with all these countries in the Middle East that have conflicts that date back thousands of years and we're going to go fix it magically with our magic powers? How did that work out in Iraq? How did that work out in Afghanistan? Do you think the people of Saudi Arabia are better off with us continuously propping up the royal family there because we like some of the things that they do? Or do you think maybe everybody would be better off if the biggest powerful kid in the playground stopped pushing people and picking sides in every single fight? And I simply look at Ukraine and I say, this is no different than any other time. But Ukraine's our ally. Stop it. How? How is Ukraine our ally? What makes Ukraine an ally? Can you show me the agreement we have with Ukraine that makes them our ally? Can you show me that agreement? Can you show me where we formally made Ukraine an ally of the United States, where we're under any obligation whatsoever? The whole concept of Ukraine was our ally. If you ask people prior to Trump's first fake impeachment, if Ukraine was our ally, they would say, what is Ukraine? Unless there's somebody like me who grew up, by the way, in a Ukrainian family. Okay? They wouldn't even know what the Ukraine was. Maybe if they watched the Olympics, they'd like, oh, some guy can really skate from Ukraine, man. Where's Ukraine? Maybe even took some time to look it up. They wouldn't know. They weren't our ally. They weren't our ally until political blood was in the water. And that's what's going on right now, too. That's why Fox News is telling you, hey, Biden's an idiot, but boy, we need to take care of, except for Tucker Carlson, I guess. Everybody on Fox News, we got to do something. We got to do something. They're our ally. Why? Because now there's blood in the water for Biden. And people are taking sides in something that literally has no benefit to the American people on either side of it whatsoever. There's no reason for us to invest any money, and there's certainly no reason for us to invest any blood in this. And the idea that it could become World War III, only if we're stupid. Really, 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 really stupid. Well, Putin will just take the whole Ukraine. First of all, I don't think so, because I don't think it benefits Putin, and I don't think Putin is going to do things that aren't to his benefit. Not because he's a good guy, but because that's what smart politicians do. And this is where I'm going to say some things about Putin, and you're going to be like, oh, he's a Putin fan. But if you like Putin, you're going to think I hate Putin, right? Because it's emotional. And the reality is that Putin is fucking a smart man. There's a lot of smart people that are bad people. Friggin' every James Bond villain and every enemy of Superman was smart, and they were still the bad guy. So don't get emotional about it when I say that. He's a very smart person. Conversely, the Biden administration, not just Biden himself, is made up of morons. I've talked about forever how we as people are playing chess and our masters or checkers, and our masters are playing three-dimensional chess. Now it's going on a global scale. You got an idiot that doesn't even know how kinging a piece works in chess running our country. And you got a freaking literal chess master overrunning Russia. And they're going to do what makes, and it's someone saying here, I hear that Ukraine is incredibly corrupt. We're going to get to that too. Ukraine is not an ally because they're also a democracy. Ukraine is not a democracy. The president of Ukraine has had his political opponents arrested simply because they're his political opponents. That is not how democracy works. Democracy, you mean like Canada? Is Canada a democracy? Right now, does Canada look like a democracy? Does a lot of the United States look like a democracy? This word, this worship word that they've created for us, our democracy. And boy, are the leftist channels going nuts with it right now. CNN and MSNBC, they've cared about nothing but democracy for the past 45 days. Almost like they knew this was coming. Attack on our democracy, 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 democracy. They don't give a shit about democracy. They care about getting what they want. All political thugs do. So let's talk about what's actually happening in Ukraine for just a minute and understand what's going on. And I might say these wrong because even though I grew up in a Ukrainian family, guess what we didn't do? We didn't speak Ukrainian. We spoke English. We didn't fly the Ukrainian flag. We flew the American flag. And we saw ourselves as Americans first with a Ukrainian heritage that mainly lied in our religion and our food and not much else. I've had a heckler on my blog telling me, you have a surname that means you need to stand up for Ukraine. You know what, your ancestors would be upset with you, for not standing up for Ukraine right now. You know what my ancestors told me about Ukraine? This family is thriving because we left. And my family had to go through Romania to get to the United States because they were in danger. And if you look back to records of people that were Ukrainian that came to the United States in the turn of the 19th to the 20th century, which is when my family got here, when my grandparents got here, early 1900s, almost all of them came through Romania. You want to talk about history? Go find out why. We won't get at it today. We're not going to have a history lesson here. Not much of one anyway. But there's two provinces, Luhansk and Donetsk, in eastern Ukraine. They're known as breakaway provinces. Do you know what breakaway province means? All of you who are like, maybe Texas should secede from the Union. That's what it means. It means they didn't talk about it. They said, we don't want to be part of Ukraine anymore, and they declared their independence. I challenge you guys to go actually look at a fucking map of Ukraine and look at these provinces and look the tiny little fucking geographic area that we're talking about here. So when I said Putin wouldn't invade Ukraine, I'm going to tell you right now, he's done more than I ever thought he would. They took an airfield freaking near Kyiv. That's pretty shocking to me. But I do think it's because of the potatoes incompetence and basically guaranteeing him the U.S. won't do absolutely shit. Now, I don't think we should do anything, but I don't think you should say that publicly and out loud and back channel, by the way, which I know happened, right? I don't think, like, when Putin went and met with Macron and Macron's like, yeah, we're not going to fucking do that, right? Like, I don't think that was smart. I don't think that was smart. But you're talking about two little areas, and these republics long ago said, we are independent. And the Minsk agreement that was signed by the Ukraine, the government of Ukraine, and these republics guaranteed them a certain amount of autonomy, which has been continuously violated. And what Putin did is he recognized their sovereignty that they first declared. And well, they're Russia. It's Russia. These are Russian regions historically. They're like 90% ethnic Russians. And you got to understand something here. I'm going to talk about somebody else. And you're going to think I'm defending her. I'm not. I'm pointing out an irony in our misunderstanding of things in the world today with things like race. Remember just a few weeks ago, everybody's losing their shit because Whoopi Goldberg said the Holocaust wasn't about race. And the case she attempted to make was, but it was white people killing white people. Yeah, it was white people killing white people. And yet everybody knows it was about race because the guy behind it wrote a book and said it was about race. They were ethnic Jews and other ethnic minorities that happen to have Caucasian skin, but it was still racist. You don't understand if you're watching this from one side right now, and I don't care if it's Fox News or CNN or any American media you're getting your shit from, you're watching it from one side. You don't understand what's going on in this region of the world right now. It is an incredibly racist region. And I'm not saying that because I believe Putin disinformation, and and Putin came out and said he's trying to denazify the Ukraine. Putin, good luck with that, because it's been that way a long time. A long time. I said we were going to go deep into history today. You want me to give you some history? Look at this here. Janut Narbar-Soroy says if Russia takes over, then we will have the Soviet Union again. Really? Because the Soviet Union was just Russia and Ukraine? Okay, fine. Whatever. They are Nazis. Yeah, they're Nazis. And I'll tell you who's the Nazis. The Nazis and fascists. They're not Russians. They're Ukrainians. You know how I know that? Because my family's from Ukraine. You know how I know that? Because one of my best friends in the world is a former KGB operative who was also Ukrainian, who became an expat after the Soviet Union fell apart because he wasn't the horrible person everybody thought he was. He didn't want to join the Russian mob or the new oligarchs. And you had two choices at that point: get your ass killed or leave. So I know what's going on. I have said that Ukraine has the potential to be Nazi Germany 2.0 since I started doing the show in 2008. Before the Crimean annexation, I was telling you that. Okay? And Putin has no interest in taking the entire Ukraine. He wants a buffer between Russia and the Soviet Union. So I want to draw something, an analogy for you. It'll be hard for a lot of you to accept because it's going to require a little bit of inversion in your thought. I want you to think of the United States, but I don't want you to see us as this massive military power. I want you in this thought experiment to pretend that Mexico has the military might of the United States, and the United States has about the military might of Mexico. And I want you to understand that at some point, maybe Texas does what people talk about Texas doing all the time, which I believe we have the sovereign right as citizens of the state of Texas to do, and say, we've had enough of this shit. We're done. We want out. We're done. And now we share a border with Mexico. Remember, Mexico's us in this thought experiment. And the United States agrees to it and then breaks their agreement with the state of Texas and has open conflict with the state of Texas they've agreed not to the point where it begins to make Mexico think, oh, shit, all hell could break loose on our border. Let's pretend Mexico and the United States and Texas actually give a shit about our border, which we don't. And what if the United States or the state of Texas is like, we want to be friendly with Mexico? And in fact, what if most of the citizens of Texas were ethnically Mexican? It's a lot more like that than what you're being told. It's not the same, but it's a lot more like that than you're being told. Somebody wrote me today and said, what if China started attacking the United States, but they said they only wanted California? I said, well, what if California was like bordered China on the same border, and the California used to be part of China, and that when the Chinese Empire broke up and the United States was formed, we just took that piece with us when we went. And then what if we had constantly had intervention in California that was threatening the Chinese border? Does that make China right or wrong? I don't know, but let's not pretend otherwise. Somebody says use Alaska. We can't because there's no, you got to understand there's a physical border here. How would you feel? Take those of you that are old enough to remember USSR, NATO, and the Warsaw Pact. How would you feel if that was still the state of the world and Mexico was talking about joining the Warsaw Pact? Oh, or Canada was talking about joining the Warsaw Pact while we still had the Warsaw Pact in NATO and the Iron Curtain in Europe. Yeah, it's like that. So this isn't defending Russia. I'm just telling you where Russia's at. And this is the difference between Putin and our government. Russia actually gives a fuck about the safety and security. Doesn't mean they're not totalitarian, but the safety and security of their nation, their people, and their borders. And we don't. And hence, we cannot understand what's going on at all. Russia cares about its fucking border with Ukraine and every other country. Russia doesn't want NATO countries on their border. Just like you wouldn't want Canada and Mexico part of an alliance with Russia. Would you? TV doesn't put it to you that way, and they never will. What do we need to do? We need to do something this country is not good at. Nothing. We need to stay out of this. We already said we're not going to intervene militarily. We need to shut our fucking mouths and let Ukraine and Russia work their shit out. Right? Well, we can't do it. Why? Because the TV told you. If it was Tanzania and Zimbabwe, would you feel the same way? If so, why not? Because the TV told you. Because you grew up watching Red Dawn. Because the Russians are the bad guys. Because Putin's evil. Like, because, you know, the head of Zimbabwe is a great guy. He's like a choir boy or what? You're being misled. You're being controlled. We need to stay completely out of it. Everything we've ever touched like this, we've made worse and we've expanded any conflict. Now, I'm going to tell you what I think is going to happen. Putin's going to flex. He's going to show what he could do. But taking Ukraine right now, bad idea. It's a fucking nightmare. Having this buffer zone and maybe getting more of the region, not just those two little provinces. Now that I think he'll make a play for. And here's what's going to happen. It's going to be one of two things. It's going to be one of two things. One, these little breakaway provinces and maybe some other ones out there will form a coalition, declare their independence, and declare themselves as a joined republic because they're too small to stand alone. Something like the original United States, maybe a confederation versus a federation, and declare their sovereignty. And Russia will say, like they already have, we support this and we will defend this. And then Russia pulls back across the Russian border and says, don't fuck with it. Okay. That's the best outcome you can hope for now because your leaders are fucking stupid and created a situation where the apple was too ripe on the tree and Putin picked it. He'll take that. I think he would actually prefer that. I think Putin would like to have this whole little belt of nations that are not NATO alliance members between him and the NATO alliance members, which only makes sense. As much as you wouldn't have wanted Mexico, right, to be a Warsaw Pact member, yeah, Belize would have been a little bit better because you got a great big buffer in there. Why the hell do you think China allows North Korea to do all the stupid shit they do? Because they're a buffer between China and South Korea. That's why. These guys all play the same game, just differently. That's the best outcome you're going to get right now. A new sovereign independent republic. The more we do, the more likely you are to get Crimea 2.0. Now, Crimea 2, that's when the Russians invaded Crimea and they shot everybody and killed everybody and said, we're claiming Crimea. No. That's where the people of Crimea got fucking nervous that the Ukraine was going to try to re-annex them and they didn't want to be part of Ukraine. Funny common thread in this. There's a lot of places that are considered Ukraine that people don't want to be part of Ukraine in. Ukraine is a mess. It's a fucking mess. So Russia sent in its troops disguised as peacekeepers and local rebels. Yeah, just like we do. By the way, every fucking thing Russia's doing, we've done a hell of a lot more of it. We've just fucked it up a lot more. Okay, we do the same shit, surgical strikes, and we're not really trying to hit. Like everything that fucking Russia just did, we've done 100 times in the past 50 fucking years. So let's not be the pot calling the kettle black here. But if we keep fucking around, what's going to happen is they're going to say, hey, we got no choice. You're pushing us. Let's have a vote. And they're going to ask the people of these satellite republics, do you want to remain part of the Ukraine or do you want to be part of the Russian Federation? And let me tell you something. You do that Ukraine-wide, you're going to get we want to stay Ukraine. You do that in freaking Eastern Ukraine, you don't have to rig the election. You're going to get an equal result. You're going to get a fucking equal result to Crimea, which was more than 90% of voters chose to become part of the Russian Federation. This is simple. You either believe in the right of people to individual self-determination or you do not. You don't pick a side when that's going on. You stay out of it. It's not our business. It's not our place. And the world will not end if part of Ukraine ends up part of Russia again. It won't change your life here in America unless your own stupid leaders make it. What's going to affect you right now? The price of fucking everything is about to go through the roof because the price of energy is going to double. And it's going to fuck our already completely fucked economy even worse. But the only reason that's going to happen, is your leaders are stupid. Your leaders are stupid. And we're going to push the price of energy way up because we're going to punish Russia. Tell you something about Russia and energy price. Oil, this is math. Oil under $70 a barrel. Russia literally can't do anything economically in the world. That's math. You can do the math for yourself if you want to. Oil, $70 and down. Russia has no economic power in the world. None. One more time. None. One more time. No economic stability or power in the world. Their economic influence in the global sphere literally crumbles at $70 a barrel of oil. So go ahead and restrict their exports. Go ahead. You don't think people are still going to buy Russian fucking oil? You don't think they're still going to sell it? You don't think they're still going to sell it to fucking Germany, even though they shut down the Nord Stream pipeline? You don't think fucking Germany's going to still buy Russia's shit? They're just going to buy it off a ship instead of out of a pipe? Do you think shutting down a pipe actually prevents fossil fuel from being distributed from one nation to another? Do you believe that? Are you that dumb? If so, turn your fucking TV off for a year because you're not capable of understanding what I'm talking about if you believe that. So what happens when you push the price of oil up for Russia? Every bit of influence and control and power they have economically in the world goes up, not down. So these sanctions that the potato salad in chief is implementing against Russia and this interference in global affairs between Germany and Russia, which is also not our fucking business, but at least Germany's actually a fucking ally. Because let me tell you something. Ukraine is not an ally. Again, show me the agreement we have for an alliance with Ukraine. We don't have one. It doesn't exist. It's a word they made up on TV for you. Our democratic ally. It's not a democracy and it's not our ally. We don't belong there. But everything we're doing is going to make Russia more powerful. Now, I'm not saying that we're going to leave it alone. I'm saying we should. We almost never do what we should. But you might want to pay attention to the things that are actually going to impact your life. If you're only seeing the live stream here, you missed my intro. But I said, and I've said this for a long time too, one of the greatest weapons we have as people, as individuals, as citizens. Individuals. When I say citizens, I mean citizens of our communities, not citizens of a state, is apathy. Apathy, we've been taught the word apathy itself is bad, it's evil, it's wrong. It's stupid thinking. If you believe that, turn your TV off. You're too programmed. You can't understand what's going on. You have to be apathetic so that you can focus your attention on things that are actually warranted to focus your attention on. I'm apathetic to the fact that it's cold outside right now because there's nothing I can do about it, and it'll get warm later. It's okay. I'm apathetic as to who's going to play the next superhero on some Marvel movie because I'm not going to watch it. And if I spent my time thinking about shit like that, I couldn't do a show. I couldn't run my life. I couldn't take care of my family. I have to be apathetic about the things that have the least effect on me. So what is the game? What is the game of the people in power? To make you focus on things you should be apathetic to so that you won't pay attention to the things you actually need to pay attention to. How about the dire state of the United States economy right now? As bad as it is on the verge of complete and total flushing itself down the toilet. We are headed toward economic ruin, and everything that idiot in control right now, that dementia patient and the moron he picked for a VP are heading us faster down the freaking economic toilet right now. But worry about Ukraine. Our supposed Democratic ally, our closest trading partner, is restricting the bank accounts of people who made a $25 fucking donation to protesters. But let's worry about fucking Ukraine. Huh? We have people in this country that can't go to the fucking supermarket without a digital passport that says they got a medical treatment they do not want, in direct violation of global fucking law and global fucking agreements. But let's worry about Ukraine. We have, and this is not about individuals, but we have a massive influx of foreign people coming across our southern border, and they're not just not stopping them, they're welcoming them in, putting them on fucking airplanes in the middle of the night and flying them all over the country, and they're not all a bunch of refugees from El Salvador. They're all over the fucking world right now. Don't look at that. Let's worry about Ukraine. We have our government moving to have complete and total financial control of every citizen and every action they take within and outside of our borders if we don't build up the infrastructure on crypto strong enough before it happens. But let's worry about fucking Ukraine. Yeah, let's worry about Ukraine. And somebody mentioned Taiwan, so I want you to think about it this way. This is how absurd we are. It's almost 20 years ago now. Crimea, the citizens of Crimea voted to be part of the Russian Federation. There was never one, unlike what's going on now, there was never a shot fired. Russians didn't drop a bomb. They didn't shoot anybody. They didn't take possession of anything. As far as troops coming in, roping out of helicopters and fucking pointing guns. No. People of Crimea voted over 90% to become part of the Russian Federation. Don't we get pissed off when people show maps of China and it includes Taiwan as part of China? Don't we say China's delusional? Don't we get upset when people when somebody refers to Taiwan as an independent country and it offends China and that person has to apologize? Don't we say, hey, this is a lack of recognition of reality that this place has been an independent sovereign since the 60s? Don't we think that's nuts? Check it out. Watch the next time your media puts up a map that shows Crimea is still being part of Ukraine. And tell me we're not doing the same fucking thing that China's doing. All the politicians are thugs. None of them have your best interest in heart. But you want to judge a leader of a country today, since they're all thugs? This is how you should judge the leader of a country. You should judge him or her on what they do to protect their people. What they do, who comes first in their eyes? Who comes first in their eyes? Other people in other countries around the world or their own people? Who? Who comes first? Do you think the American people come first with Joe Biden and Kamala Harris? If you do, turn your fucking TV off for 2 years. You're not capable of thinking. Do you think the Canadian people come first with Justin Trudeau? No? Okay. No matter how much you don't like the guy. Who do you think comes first with Vladimir Putin? The Russian people or some other nation's people? It's a pretty simple thing, isn't it? You know why they hate the president of Hungary? Puts the people of Hungary first. It's a democracy. He was elected. He's in true danger of losing his re-election. But all of a sudden he's a thug and he's a horrible person and he's a racist because he puts his people first. The reality is a lot of these people that are maybe not the best people in the world, but they're vilified by our government. They have one thing that I can say about them that is admirable, well beyond just about anybody that's ever run this country. They put their people first. No matter how much if I was president of a country, no matter how much I disliked the leader of another country, the one thing I would respect him for is putting his people first. And the one thing I would never respect him for is putting the people of other countries before his own. All right, guys, that'll wrap that up. I need to get this bolted into the audio version of the podcast. That went longer than I planned. I'm going to tell you, I know some of this is hard to hear, and I'm surprised at how many people showed up for this today. Like, we're at like 390 people just on YouTube, and that doesn't count Float and No Agenda Tube and all these other places. Thanks for listening to me. And I just challenge you, without listening to CNN or Fox News, maybe listen to this a second time and think about it. And again, learn to be apathetic to the right things. So you have to do something counterintuitive here in spite of how over the top I was a little bit emotionally on this, trying to drive my point home. You have to be apathetic toward what we're going to do. Now, not to the results that will come from it, because we're not going to leave it alone. We're not going to leave it alone. We are going to keep fucking with it. And it's more likely because of that Putin's going to take a bigger piece of Ukraine and absorb it into Russia. This whole thing could have been headed off if the entire NATO alliance had said, we don't want Ukraine in NATO because it doesn't fit our charter. But they didn't. But you still have to be apathetic toward what they're going to do because you don't have any control over it. Right now, those other problems I brought up, the way the entire freaking socioeconomic structure of our country is being altered by importing people who do not share basic common American values. Like, at least growing up in the 80s, even when we were divided, there were core common American values that 95% of us agreed with. Globalists have destroyed that, and they're making it worse, and they're aggravating by bringing, and there's going to be some real problems in this country. I'm talking violent problems. I'm talking more shit being burned down like in the Summer of Love. The economic position that we're in is absolutely horrific. The supply chain situation is absolutely horrific. There will be a massive turnover of power in the Senate and the House. The Republicans are going to take it's going to be one of the biggest biggest turnovers of power you've ever seen. And it'll sound great and everybody will get all happy about it. It's not going to fix anything. And there's two things that can happen. One, they can make enough noise that they take the White House back in 2024, or they can be played if Biden can hire some people to play them. And when it gets worse, they'll get blamed for it. And it doesn't matter. You better shore up your shit right now, guys. That's all I got for you today. I will be back tomorrow with an Outback with Jack. Maybe we'll talk a little bit more about this then. And next week, I already announced this for the audio side. We're going to do a show where maybe next week or the following, we're going to do a show where we dig into the true economic problems we have right now, because I don't think anybody really understands how bad it is. And you can take the debt clock and you can stop looking at that now. That ship sailed. We've got economic problems that are more. I'll save it for next week, but it's not really about fiat money. It's about all the damage that's been done with fiat money. But we now live in a country where we don't make hardly anything anymore. We rely on our enemies for our materials. We're trying to move into an economic recovery as this COVID scamdemic shit comes to an end. And we don't have the raw material to run the factory that is the corporation known as the United States of America. Adrian says here at the end, anything about NATO involvement in this conflict. NATO's not going to get involved. They made it very clear they weren't going to get involved. Marcone told Putin to his face that we weren't going to get involved. The official position of the United States government right now is this is a war that does not include us. I think that is a smart position. But I think saying it before it happened is why it happened. I'll catch you guys later.